The Art of Reformation. You know, last year ToonKritic did a video with the same title. And ToonKritic brought up some good points. You see, the one thing that if there's anything, I should say, that this fan base, this community that helped grow this series, helped make it into what it is today. If there's one thing or anything that they can disagree on, is the reformation of certain antagonistic characters into good guys or good gals. You see, the reason there's such a debate or argument when it comes to this sensitive subject is due to the fact that here you have a show that's really good, that's really evolved and developed into a show that's now more than just a show and a franchise for little kids and little girls. Now it's a show and a franchise meant for everyone of every age, if not that older adult demographic, if you will, with some of the references and tones that they throw in there and acknowledgments that they throw in there. But if there's one thing, but when it comes to that fan base, that community, like I said, the one thing, like any fan base or community out there, if there's one thing not a lot of people agree on, is the direction the writing staff takes certain characters. And when it comes to the art of reformation, reforming a character from one side to the other, in this case from bad to good, like I said, a lot of the fans out there that are basically against this feel that this show has the potential to give us some good antagonistic villains, and sometimes long-lasting antagonistic villains that can be remembered for even when the show comes to an end. But the other side of the coin, but on the other side of things, if you will, you have that other group of fans that understands with a group that doesn't like the reformation of certain antagonistic characters is coming from, but they also remember what the show's title is and what the show's moral is, and that is friendship is magic, and that if you give certain characters a chance and help them out, that friendship will always win out in the end. In this case, when it comes to certain potentially good antagonistic villains, the show does this a lot. But it's not just the show either. Its comic book spin-off has done it as well. I'll give you an example. King Sombra potentially was one of the better and darker villains and more threatening villains that the franchise and the show debuted at the end of season 3. But as we saw, he ended up being destroyed thanks to Cadence and Spike getting back the Crystal Heart and putting it back where it belongs in the Crystal Empire. But that wasn't the end of it. Even though Sombra was destroyed, he was still able to be resurrected. You see, the comic did a follow-up called Siege. This is where some lesser-known antagonistic villains or foes of the main six decided to gather the pieces of King Sombra, use a certain spell to resurrect him to overtake Canterlot and Ponyville. But even though that idea was good, and even though we got backstory, an origin story for Sombra even before that, even though that all had great potential, what happened in the end? King Sombra ended up being reformed. Yes, it took a character that we've only seen it took a new character that had a history with Sombra, I guess you could say a romantic history, to have him change from bad to good. And that turn right there, for a lot of the fan base that's been against this, that was like the last straw. And but what's crazy is even though that was the last straw, it didn't come from the show. It came from the comic book, which was doing a follow-up to the show. Now, if King Sombra being turned exclusively in the comics isn't bad enough, the one argument that ToonKritic started out with on his video was the whole Starlight Glimmer thing. You see, Starlight started off the season as the main antagonist and ended it as well in the same fashion. And there were moments where you see her in the background sort of spying and following Twilight and her friends. However, despite the fact that she took Twilight and Spike through different time eras, and basically showed how certain events could change, how certain events would change, and if Twilight, I guess, was in the same predicament she was in, this all ultimately led to them going into an area to a future time of Equestria, where Equestria is desolated, destroyed, and deserted, basically dead, if you will. And this time period that they end up, this future time period, this is where Starlight's eyes are open to the realization that, oh crap, I might be going too far with this. And for Twilight to say, look, you lost a friend, but I'm willing to be a friend. I'm willing to help you rediscover that friendship, the magic of that friendship once again. For her to give Starlight that second chance, again, it pretty much is in tone with what the name of the show is, Friendship is Magic. The moral of the show is, friendship wins out, give certain people a chance by being their friend, and you may see a big difference. But for some people like ToonKritic, this came too quickly. Instead of, putting her like on a probationary period, they didn't do that. I mean, true, throughout season 6, you kind of had the rest of the main six kind of be questionable about Starlight, especially during certain episodes and moments where she would use magic and sometimes have them do things against their will and stuff like that, kind of going back to her old ways. When you look at that with someone like Starlight, from a character standpoint, that's just habit. That's just something that, like, okay, I'm going to have to resort to something I don't want to have to resort to again, and that's what happens. And you have to look at season 6 as being like a probationary period for her. Like because there are times in the season when episodes focus on her where she weakens. She ends up being weakened by things she tries. Where she's trying to not be that same pony she was the previous season. But it's hard for her to do. But when you get to the finale, it's basically like she's come full circle now. Not only has she learned the lessons she needs to learn, but she now realizes that if she's going to be good, if she's going to turn over this new leaf, she's got to do things the right way. She's got to prove that she can be a leader and do things the right way. So season 6, showed that she still could be, that she could easily still be persuaded to do things the way she previously did before, but try to fight against it. So you can consider that like a probationary period for her. And that potentially, I know some people might say, well, potentially they could have used that to slowly cause distrust. And they did. Because there were several episodes where with the exception of Twilight, the rest of the main 6 were kind of not sure about her yet. I mean, yes, they accepted her in as a friend, but they still were not 100% sure if she could be trusted, especially after some of the things she pulled during season 6. The point is Starlight was still kind of on that fence in season 6. here in season 7, you can tell she's still battling against going back to her old ways, but she's more refined, she's more reformed, but she still has those inklings here and there to be like, okay, if I'm tempted, I may end up turning if some kind of temptation comes my way that I can't control or something like that. But, I understand where Toon Critic's coming from, though. Her reformation was a little too quick. Well, let me ask you this, Toon, if you're listening, or anybody else that's listening. Was it too quick, or did season 6 kind of serve almost like a probationary period for her? Like, she was trying a redeeming period for her. Like, yeah, she'd fall back, but she'd always try to take she'll take 3 steps back, 3 steps and fall back, but she'll take 4 steps and go and move forward to try to make up for that. I'm just saying that's the way I look at it with Starlight. I mean, yeah, so that's the way I look at Starlight, that her reformation took almost an entire season, but I think, even though you may agree or disagree, I think it was well executed and kind of helped her come full circle. But we can also tell that she's still dealing with some of those issues, because if you take a look at the episode All Bottled Up, she kind of tries to keep her anger to herself before she finally lashes out at Trixie, but I guess, as my mom would say, in a righteous way. Like, it's a righteous anger she has towards Trixie. She still views her as a friend, but Trixie has gotten up to her last nerve that through that righteous anger, she's lashing out on how she feels about Trixie behaving and stuff. So, with that said, yeah, she can still fall victim, but she's trying her best not to. Now, when it comes to the other villains, like Discord, one thing Silverquill said in a video he did, in one of his co-op videos he did with I Love KP a lot, was he mentioned that Discord, despite being reformed, thanks to, of all characters, Fluttershy, Discord is still antagonistic. He can still go back to his antagonistic ways. We have seen that. But he's more of that, I guess you could say, hero that's not one that didn't completely turn a 180. He instead turned, I would say, a 120. Like, he is good, but he can still fall back to his antagonistic ways, if provoked or angered or whatever. So there's that. And then when you take a look at Luna when she was Nightmare Moon, and the fact that depending on who wrote the episode, they would always come back and revisit, what she was as an antagonistic villain. A lot of fans would say that if they decided to go back and make her that way again, she has the potential being a good villain. But here's the thing about Luna. Yes, she's come full circle. Yes, she has accepted what she's done and she has been forgiven, even not just by herself, but by her friends that she has made. But here's the one thing about Luna. Here's the one thing about her. She's good. She's real good. But she's also the kind of character that's very rebellious. She may not show it at times, depending on who the writers are, but she's very take action and rebellious if she needs to be. So when you take a look at Luna in that perspective, she's not antagonistic, but she still has some antagonistic tweaks here and there that don't show as much, but you tell are there just through, let's say, a rebellious attitude, or take action right now attitude, or whatever. Now, speaking of villains to be reformed, or in this case yet to be reformed, let's talk about Queen Chrysalis. Here's a villain or villainess that is now, as we've seen in the season 8 animatronic, for either in the season 8 premiere for what will be basically a season-long arc, or just a 2-part premiere where it end like that, or be saved for the finale of the season, who knows. Here's a villainess that, as one fan put it, is on her 3rd attempt, her 3rd strike against the main 6 and their friends. And when I hear the words third strike in the same sentence, that usually would indicate in this fan's case that mentioned this, that this is her third strike, and that this would probably be fall under the 3 strikes you're out category, or in the MLP case, 3 strikes and you're reformed category. Yeah, a lot of fans are fearing that this upcoming season, season 8, will be the season that Chrysalis finally becomes reformed. That she becomes a good girl. She sees the errors of her way. So, if that happens, it happens, but it's something that I think for a lot of fans would be the final straw. It'd be like, really? Of all the antagonist villains that you've had going for a while, and potentially some of the very best ones, Queen Chrysalis being one of probably the best, if not the best, now all of a sudden she's reformed. Now a lot of fans are going to be happy about that. I mean, like I said earlier, King Sombra may have been like the last straw, but that was done thanks to the comics. Queen Chrysalis in the show, that could definitely be the final straw. That potentially could be the final straw, if you know what I mean. But we'll have to wait and see. Other characters that have antagonistic tendencies to them, or can be like antagonistic foes that have been reformed, but have the potential to have been better antagonistic villains or rivals. One that a lot of fans felt that should have stayed antagonistic in many ways, and still somewhat has the antagonistic tendencies, is Trixie. Yes, Trixie is a fan favorite. Yes, Trixie has turned a 180 in a sense, or 120 like Discord, where she's still antagonistic, but she's good. She's still antagonistic, but she's good. A lot of fans still feel that she should have just stayed more antagonistic, that she should have stayed a foe and a rival for Twilight, because none of the main 6 really have that many rivals on their level. Trixie, in a sense, is in that category. Well, not anymore, thinks Twilight's an alicorn, but still, you get my point. You get my point. She kind of was and could be still in that category. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Even though they could have kept Trixie that way, they even want to show that sometimes a character, because the one thing about Trixie that still keeps her sort of antagonistic, even though she has a good heart and she's turned it around, is she's kind of like what Starlight was when she was a villain. And that is, she's smart aleck. She's a smart aleck protagonist is what Trixie is. That's where her antagonistic tendencies come from, is the fact she's smart aleck. She lets her ego get the best of her at times, and sometimes she'll tell it like it is, if you catch my drift. Even though she's turned it around, she still has those antagonistic tendencies of being a smart aleck, letting her ego sometimes get the best of her, and telling it like it is. So, yeah, Trixie and Discord are like sort of the exceptions to where they have turned it around, but it's not a complete 180, it's more of a 120, if you catch my drift. Now, that brings me to one last thing, and I don't want to give much away, even though a lot of fans pretty much know this is probably the direction they're going in. The MLP movie, which comes out in a couple weeks, there's a certain character that's getting very over with the fans. A lot of fans look at her as being one of the more intimidating, threatening, and more badass antagonistic villains the franchise has had, the Friendship is Magic generation has had. But yet, a lot are afraid that she's going to end up going down the same path several of the other characters that I've mentioned in this audio video have gone down. Now, I'm not going to say much, but pretty much a lot of people are predicting that could be what happens. Hopefully we're wrong. Hopefully we're wrong, but knowing how this franchise is, one can only wonder. But we'll just have to wait and see. But the point is, when it comes to the Art of Reformation, when it comes to certain antagonistic villains and overall threats, there are a few exceptions. You take a look at Tyrek, there's one that will never be reformed, no matter what. take a look at some of the smaller antagonistic foes that the main six has gone up against, and they may never have a chance of being reformed. But I think when it comes to the Art of Reformation, I think the message they're trying to get across here, is sometimes even the worst of the worst, or the misunderstood, all they need is a chance at having someone show them what true friendship is like, and showing that they can trust people and that no one will turn their backs on them. That basically, I think, is the biggest takeaway when it comes to these Art of Reformations. Because you can have your small antagonistic rivals and foes, like Rarity did in Rarity Takes Manhattan, like Rainbow Dash did in a friend of hers named Lightning Dusk or something, or whatever her name is. You know, you could have these rivals. You can have these antagonistic rivals, but in the end, I think the message is that even though they could probably be turned around in an instant, that sometimes the most misunderstood and basically sometimes the worst of the worst, if given a chance, can turn it around. If only someone is willing to extend a hand, or in this case a hoof, to help them turn it around. Overall, when it comes to the Art of Reformation, I can understand how people feel it's becoming repetitive and monotonous, and it needs to end, it needs to stop. Because when one looks at this show, they feel that the creative staff has to realize that yes, originally this show when it started off was intended for that younger generation, but now it's grown and evolved into being a show for all ages, if not mostly the adolescent adult demographic that's known as the Bronies and Pegasister communities and overall fan base. So I can understand where they're coming from, and I can also understand where fans who point out and remember what the show is called and what the moral and overall lesson of the show is, who can also who can relate and understand to that side of the fan base that feels the repetitiveness of Reformation is getting out of hand. I can understand both sides of the coin. I can understand that, yes, you got to remember this is Friendship is Magic. It's called Friendship is Magic. The moral and lesson of the show is to make friends, no matter who it could be with. Is try to make friends with just about anybody you feel that needs a friend. But I'm also part of that group but just like that group, I also understand how those that probably know that as well feel of the repetitiveness when it comes to the Art of Reformation. So my thought is this. If this show is going to go for a decade-long run, which I still believe it will, which I still believe it may, it's just my opinion, I still believe it may do, then I think the writing staff has to take into consideration that not every major villain or threat in the show has to be reformed, and that sometimes it's best if you just leave them as is, unreformable. At least show that not everybody, that the main six, mostly someone like Twilight, is not going to be able to make friends with every creature or pony she comes in contact with. I would say if they're going to go a decades-long run with the show, try to go in that direction to where not every major antagonistic character, whether it's a pony, another pony, or whatever, is redeemable. Because if you start going in that direction, fans will be more appreciative. Because at least you will show that you're not pushing the envelope and being repetitive when it comes to the Art of Reformation. So that's all really I have to say on it. Let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. And really, what do you think about it? what do you think about the Art of Reformation? Do you think it's a good thing because pretty much it stays in tone with what the show is known for? Or do you think maybe it needs to stop and things have to be balanced out? Let me know what you think down below. Comment if you like. I would really like to hear from you guys. And I will talk to y'all later. God bless. Take care. Peace out.